Know that we have given it all to God, and He has given us supernatural strength to carry on with our lives and have full faith in His plan. You never take time to think something so devastating can happen to your seemingly perfect family. April 2nd, 2015, I wrote this post. This is when we told the world, our friends and family, that our daughter, Kendi Ladd, had MPS 1 Hurler Syndrome. I ended it with this Bible verse. From the ends of the earth I call to you when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Psalm 61:2. I'm Allie, and this is Ryan, and we're the Ladd family. We are the parents of Kendi and Lincoln Ladd, who have MPS 1 Hurler Syndrome.
And this is episode number 3 of our journey with MPS 1 Hurler Syndrome. Links below will be for episode 1 and episode 2 if you're just now visiting our page. And if you've continued our journey with you, we want to welcome you back and thank you for continuing with us. Quick recap for episode 1 and 2 for those that haven't seen those episodes. Basically, Allie and I got married. We had Kennedy. We had the best 9 months until we were devastated with the news that Kennedy had MPS 1 Hurler Syndrome. After that, we were referred to Cincinnati Children's, where Kennedy received her enzyme replacement therapy, and also she started chemo. And we started out episode number 3 with Kennedy going inpatient and starting out her transplant.
I don't really remember a whole lot of going inpatient with Kennedy. Going through this book that we made that has some of our memories in it, I can remember writing a post saying how hard it was to let go of your perfectly healthy child, to have her come back with cords coming out of her. The day we went inpatient, Kennedy went under and had 2 central lines placed. The central lines would be her life for the next few months. It's how she would receive blood products. It's how she would receive medicine. It's how she would receive her life-saving bone marrow transplant.
We didn't really know what would come with those central lines either, and you can probably tell them a little bit more about what we had to go through daily and weekly, and not just because of the central lines, but with everything that was going on between going inpatient, the dressing changes, and all.
Care and maintenance is a lot. Living in the hospital is a lot. For somebody so private and introvert, it was a struggle to have. So, what do you call it? Checks. I guess vital checks, I'm not sure. But the nurses come in every 4 hours on the dot, and they check blood pressure, temperature, pulse ox, a variety of things. So not only are they waking the baby normally if you don't have a heavy sleeper, but they're waking the baby. The door opens, the light from the hallway comes in, it clicks when it closes, they turn on the computer. So
we got in trouble for you remember that? We got in trouble for putting duct tape on the door to keep it from clicking every time they come in.
You try anything to get sleep, so highly recommend a sound machine, 2 or 3. On top of just vital checks, you have dressing change every week, which means they're taking the adhesive literally that's off on the dressing, they're taking it off. So that's not necessarily painless or pain-free in the beginning, but as the kids start taking anti-rejection meds, they get hairy, and so then it is painful to take the dressing off.
And that area gets, rashy red and just irritated because it's got to happen every week. That's just one of the what stipulations, is that what you'd call it? One of the stipulations, or one of the guidelines or operating procedures, whatever you want to call it, that Cincinnati Children's has, that every 7 days or within the 7 days, that dressing has to be changed. It really can't go longer than that. So the area gets irritated from the constant, dressing changes. And
I'm not a morning person, so after being up all night, you would have rounds every morning where the doctors and the pharmacists, and they come around and just ask how the night was, and to sort of tell you a game plan for the day and ask if you have any questions. So that's hard to go out in the hallway in the bright light, 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning. And then as soon as you come back in, it seems like somebody's coming and knocking on your door because you have to have weight every day. They check their weight. They check the diapers, the input, the output. So you weigh every diaper. You don't throw anything away. We had chemo regimens where diapers had to be changed every 2 hours because the chemo was so toxic it could burn their skin. The parents, whoever's changing the diaper, is supposed to wear gloves. So it was a lot.
Changes. You got physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist. It's a Grand Central Station revolving door about all day long, and then you finally get to lay down at night and possibly get just a little bit of sleep, and then they're coming in, changing trash and checking diapers, and the list goes on and on and on. But so Kennedy, we found out, we told a lie in episode 2 that Kennedy had 14 days of chemo, and she did not.
I think she had a test day. She had about 7 days of chemo. She had a test day, and then I'm thinking she had 5 days chemo and then a day of rest and then transplant. And that's another, I feel like, frequently asked question or misunderstanding, that a bone marrow transplant is a surgery. A bone marrow transplant is...
You'll be able to see from the pictures that it's basically an uneventful day. It's just what goes on before and after that is
I mean, it's
really
still
eventful.
highly risky. It's very scary. Things can go wrong and happen. We've seen kids code during transplant just as they're pushing the cells. So it's essentially a bag or a syringe of, it looks like blood, but a bag or syringe of cells that's pushed through the central line that has to be given in a quick amount of time before they expire, because they come frozen and then they thaw, and you have, I could be wrong, but maybe a 30-minute window from the time they thaw that they have to be inserted into the body. And then it smells like cream corn. It stinks really bad, so you know when somebody had a bone marrow transplant that day. And then you just sit and you wait.
You smell
Chemo
it
really...
all down the hallways, and as soon as you enter the unit, basically you can tell if somebody's had a transplant that day. It's that strong.
Chemo really starts to take effect around that day. Transplant day, in the next 7 to 14 days after the day of transplant is when chemo starts to kick in, and the kids feel really yucky, and they have sores all in their mouth from mucositis, and mucositis could be from your mouth all the way down to your anus, which is sores and mucus, and so gagging and choking and just don't feel good. They normally stop eating. We hoped and we prayed that Kendi wouldn't need a source of feeding. She was exclusively breastfed, but she did. She got in a feeding tube around day +6. So when we say day +6, transplant day is 0. So 6 days after transplant, she needed an NG tube for not only nutrition, but her some medicine needs.
On around day +10, she started losing her hair. I tried to shave my head as well, but Allie kept saying, no, she's got a little bit of hair. She's not completely bald. You can't really shave your hair yet. And so I kept wanting to shave my head.
I feel like you don't notice things like that until you go back and look at pictures. We didn't think she was really that bald. We didn't think she really looked that sick during the time, I guess. But now, as we go back and look at pictures, we realize how bad she really did look.
She really was, yeah. So you can't, one of the things that you may or may not know about the transplant unit is that the parents are not allowed to eat in the kids' rooms. Basically, they feel so terrible and they don't want to eat, or they want to eat really good food, but obviously they can't because of the mucositis and just how terrible they feel from the chemo and what's taking a toll on their body. So they don't want the parents eating in the room because it's worse on the child. And
I think maybe we might have thought of that. I think it's sanitary reasons too. A lot of sanitary reasons, and for the same reason that if the child uses the restroom in the bathroom, so like if they're potty trained age, then the parent cannot use the restroom in the child's room. So you can't take a shower in your child's room, you can't go to the bathroom in your child's room. You have to go back to the Ronald McDonald House or a community community bath down the hall. So I think it's a variety of reasons, but there were a lot of rules. But Social Butterfly here made his way to the community areas to eat.
So with that, we had a common area where we'd eat, store food, and everything. So of course, all the families, not all at the same time, but most of the families would be in there eating, and we got to know quite a bit. I'm glad of it. It was a hassle. It was inconvenient per se to have to go to those areas and eat, and sometimes Allie and I would have to switch out because we didn't want to leave Kennedy, or there wasn't a nurse to be able to stand by with just a few minutes with Kennedy. So I would go, and I usually end up spending a lot more time in the common area talking to a bunch of the dads. We'd get talking about sports, or at the time there was another firefighter in the unit as well, and so we got to talking about our jobs and positions, and the difference from departments, and just was able to meet a lot of families. But with that, I kind of look at it on the whole aspect of Facebook. Facebook can be terrible, or social media in general can be terrible, but it can also give you a means to gain extra prayer warriors, just like we did with Kennedy's page. So just like with Facebook, we was able to communicate and socialize with those other families, which I believe gave us more prayer warriors for Kennedy, and also vice versa for them. We was able to pray for them and hear their story, and it was a hassle, but it was a blessing as well.
It was a blessing in a lot of ways, but I am very guarded, and I think it's part of being an introvert and just not, I don't really know how to word it, getting attached to things that might not always be there. And it was sort of like that for me, because we had families we had met. There was 3 children that we had gotten pretty close to on our floor that passed away during the transplant process. One child that passed away, he didn't pass away until we had moved back home, but we had been through a lot of the process together, and he had Hurler Syndrome like Kennedy. And so to see him suffer and to love that family so much and not have the words to say and to have almost survivor's guilt was extremely hard.
He was right across the hall from us on his, wasn't he readmitted? And then
yeah, during a lot of it. His name was Jackson. I'm sure you guys remember us rallying and wearing Balls Love Jacks t-shirts, and just really praying for this family. Julia and Corey became good friends of ours, and we love them dearly. We also lost Dominique and Brandon, and other people. Just the journey for everybody is so different. Hurler is so different. A bone marrow transplant is so different. There is no guide. There's no book. I mean, it is literally so different for each family.
Some things that are the same, but for the most part, everybody has their own battles, their own struggles. It's just like Allie said, just very, very, very different, and no guidebook that can say this is what's going to happen on this day. This is what's going to happen on this day. They can give you a hint, but can't really exactly say this is what you're going to face. This is what's going to happen. And so it was frustrating, but it's your own journey, and you make it what it is. day plus 16, things kind of started to get a little more real. Kennedy started to get Engraftment syndrome, which we were told was a good thing because we were starting to see the donor cells engraft to her body, but they were engrafting too fast. Instead of slowly taking over the body, they had just said, "Oh, we're here, we're going," and rolled with it. So with that came really high fevers. As you can see from the pictures, Kennedy just looked awful and felt terrible, and we had to completely strip her of her clothes. We had to put cold towels. They even brought a machine in that would, it was a cooling blanket where it'd flow cool air and water in the blanket to help bring her body temperature down. She had to go on blow by oxygen, I believe, at that time too, because her O2 sats were dropping, and it was just it was heartbreaking, to say the least. It was heartbreaking to see her in that condition. We were happy because they told us that that was a good sign that engraftment was taking place, but on the other hand of it, it was very, very devastating and scary to see her temperatures rise. I think at one point they even got to the 104, 105 range. It was just, there's no way to explain it other than it was just terrible to see. She also received a pain pump whenever she got engraftment syndrome as well, so that could help ease her pain and make her a little bit more comfortable while she was going through engraftment syndrome. We eventually finally got her temperature back down. Things started to calm down. We had some blood and platelet transfusions as well, so that's one of the things that's routine through transplant. We had multiple of those. After that, Kennedy celebrated her first birthday in the hospital, so we couldn't go out and have anything, but the local bakery there made her a birthday cake, and we tried to get her to smash it, but she did not want anything to do with that cake.
It's a nonprofit called something Smiles. Icing Smiles. It's Icing Smiles, and they team up with local bakeries in different areas or bakers, and they provide birthday cakes to kids like Kennedy, her inpatient in the hospital, for free. So they made her a Minnie Mouse birthday cake, and we celebrated, and we were still just sort of waiting.
Child Life had brought her some birthday presents, so it would feel like her birthday, and sang happy birthday and made signs for her.
And people had mailed.
Yeah, mailed presents.
Our followers had sent some presents too.
Yeah, we were very blessed with gifts from followers for sure, and unlike her parents, who absolutely love cake and love sweets, Kennedy did not want anything to do with that birthday cake at all. She just
but she still wasn't eating at that point.
No, she wasn't really feeling all that well. We were just trying to make her feel somewhat at home with having a birthday party there, and just wanted to celebrate her first birthday. It was unfortunate that we had to be in the hospital, but we were very, very blessed to still have our baby girl here with us to be able to celebrate her first birthday. So we made.
It must have just been, I think after so many days, they just do a routine engraftment study. And for a few times, Kennedy's had been either around the 40s or it never went past 40%, meaning that she was never more than 40% donor cells. And so that was the first time we heard that maybe we needed to do a bone aspiration, that Kennedy was not engrafting, or that her transplant was failing.
Well, just to give you a little bit of insight there, you like to be 100% donor cells, so you want the transplant to completely take over your body, and basically that becomes your body, changes your makeup and blood type, it can, and stuff of that. So to be 40% was not good. It wasn't a good thing at all. through our post and everything, we have talked about numbers, and that's the numbers. We want to see those rise. That's the numbers that we talk about. So 41% engraftment, and her ANC and white blood count wasn't coming up. We were told that Kennedy's transplant may be failing, and that's whenever she had to have a bone marrow aspiration. And the bone marrow aspiration is done under anesthesia, and they take a needle and go through the back of the hip into the femur bone, pull out a chunk of bone marrow and test the cellularity of it to see how much is in the bone marrow. After the bone marrow aspiration, the results weren't good,
but it gave them it gave us a slim chance, because there was 5% cellularity. Even though she had 41% engraftment, there was a 5% cellularity, and it only takes one cell to multiply. Their theory was that Kennedy's lymphocytes weren't all killed off, or they were donor lymphocytes. So the plan forward, after meeting with the head of the bone marrow team, was to give her Campath, and the Campath would either cause her donor cells to grow by killing off her lymphocytes, or they would kill off everything that was left, like donor lymphocytes, I guess, and prepare her for a second transplant. So either way, the Campath, I guess, was going to be used per se. It was really hard because Kennedy had felt so bad at this point, and she had just started drinking a little bit and maybe feeling a little bit better. And so now she was going to have to go through chemo again. That's Campath is a type of chemo. And on top of it being chemo, it could not go through her central lines. So she had to be, she was going to have 3, I guess you would say, doses of it. And the doses had to be shot in her thigh. So that was really hard.
Yeah, after all she'd been through, and then have to go through more sticks and more pricks and everything is just very devastating, obviously.
We are wanting to create awareness, but we also know that we want to be a point of reference or a contact for a newly diagnosed family, or maybe even a family that's just starting to go through the bone marrow transplant. Our regimen might be different than yours, and it all sounds like, I know at this stage, it was still so foreign language. It was definitely a foreign language. So it's not something I could remember, and even now it's hard to remember, and it seems, probably to you it seems foreign, but to somebody else maybe it could help them or give them hope, or they could say, oh yeah, we heard that, or just anything. So we definitely want your comments below, and
we're not perfect at it by any means. So we're members of a Facebook group, and we learn things and talk to people on a daily basis, where we figure out what we need to be doing, and helpful tips and tricks. And so that's what we want to be, like Ali said, a point of reference to help, and just to do anything we can to help.
Yeah, so if you're a Hurler family below, even if you're not, but if you are a Hurler family, comment below and let us know you're here. Let us know if you have any questions and what we can do.
So be sure and subscribe down below, hit the bell, leave us a comment, like or dislike. We stated in episode 2 that we like constructive criticism. We want to know maybe some deeper questions that we can go into more detail. If you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, the links will be below, or you can click the cards up at the top left of the screen.
And people are always asking for ways to help. I can't tell you how much it means just that you're watching this video or that you've shared it. So just for you to share the video or to like the video means more than I hope you ever have to know. One thing I did like on the last episode, I saw a few people when they shared it, they said that they learned something new. So if you would share what you learned, so that maybe we could help others, or maybe we could elaborate, because even outside of these videos, we're going to do maybe like a frequently asked questions, or we're going to do our top 5 tips and tricks in the hospital, or
Like the duct tape on the door to keep it from clicking.
yeah, I mean, it's always better to ask for forgiveness than permission for the most part. So there's a lot of things we learned, a lot of things that made it a little bit easier with Lincoln, even though his was a whole different ball game. But there's definitely things we feel like could be valuable to other families.
Y'all have an amazing day, and we thank you so much. God bless you.
Bye.